Hello and welcome to the show. Today I'm going to be talking about Grid Legends. This has actually taken me a little while to be happy with this video, shall we say, because I've enjoyed my time with this game. I quite like this game. Yet I also have a big list of problems with it. It's a strange one. It's a little bit of a strange one to me, but yeah, we'll get into it. Now, I'm not going to show any footage from the story mode. If you want to avoid spoiling something, there's going to be no footage from the story mode, none of that stuff. We will talk about it, but I will keep it as I won't mention anything that really goes on. You don't really have to, because yeah, if you're into that, that's cool. It is a fun little thing, I have to say. It's an interesting. I think it's done a little bit better than the Formula One story, and yeah, stories in racing games are curious because, you know, on the surface you don't need a story for a racing game. That is very, very true. However, there's a lot of potential for it. Because at the end of the day, motorsport gets some wacky, crazy, interesting stories. Because strange things happen. Things that you never expect happen. Which can make for wonderful stories and really interesting stories. What should we drive? You know what? Let's go. We have a classic GT. This looks fun. So yeah, you can get some really interesting stories from motorsport, and I think there is always a possibility for those to be told. The problem that I have with this one is, while it is actually pretty interesting on the most part, it's not quite reactive enough. And this is the thing: when it comes to a race, a lot of random things can happen. Now, let's take Formula 1, for example, probably because the largest amount of people will know what I'm talking about. You expect Mercedes and Red Bull to be at the front, but occasionally Ocon wins because Bottas goes bowling into turn 1 and weird things happen. And those are the stories that are the most interesting, but of course, the game can't quite comprehend that. It's, you know, your goal might be to finish 5th in a race or finish 7th in a race. If you go and win that race, the game is treating it as if you just completed the objective. The basis of the story is you're at a small, slightly underfunded team that's punching above its weight, essentially speaking. Now, if I go and jump into a race and win on the first time out, beating Raven West, the big baddies, if you will, the big main team, that should be a huge story, but the game is treating it as if I've just come in 7th, which was still good for the team, but it's that slight lack of almost reaction to what's going on from me that just... The story, it's fun enough, but it kind of irks me a little bit. I feel like that there is a great potential. I also understand it would be very difficult to perhaps deal with all the possible connotations, because, as I said, racing is unpredictable. Strange things happen. And while that makes real-life motorsport sometimes tell great stories, you know, I can see why, but it just leaves. It's close. It's good. It's getting there. It's probably the best done story I've come across in a racing game. It's just, yeah, there are going to be little things like that. I would definitely say it is still worth a play, though, because, as I said, it is well done. It's better done than a bunch of the Need for Speed stories that were very dumb. Like, it's intelligently done, at least. Oh, we've got a big Twitch and a Lancia. We're going to visit a field now. So yeah, there is a story mode. It is definitely interesting to play and well worth a play. Let's get into physics, because this is the next bit that is... Oh god, I'm not sure. I've not driven the Lancia before. I'm not sold on it. The physics, this is a strange one, because... Okay, this is an arcade racer, at the end of the day. There's no two ways about it. It is an arcadey racing game. That's fine. I like a good arcade racing game. Do not get me wrong. Do not mind the cats in the background. Abaddon's decided to chase the cat around the office. Thank you for that one. Yeah, don't mind a good arcadey handling system. And this isn't terrible. It's just a little odd. The first thing that I have an issue with is the braking. So I drive with no assist. That means no ABS, no traction control, etc. And of all the games I've ever played, this is the weirdest one for brake feel. There's no information about your car locking up. Now, what I mean by that is that normally games like Forza, or every racing game I've ever played, when you are starting to lock the brakes up, you get slight rumbles from the controller. It's a way of telling what's going on with the brakes. It's quite important information at the end of the day. Don't get that on here. You get absolutely nothing. The only real indication that you're locking up is either got smoke coming off the car or it gets very wiggly under brakes because the rears are locking or something along those lines. There's just no feel to it. In general, there just doesn't seem to be enough information coming back to me through sort of like the vibration on the controller as to what the car's doing. It just doesn't really, unless it's very much at the edge of grip, is about to slide, or you've had a crash. Oh, there's a backwards Lancia. I'll take that position from you, thank you very much. And now, it's not so bad in some of the slower, more entry-level cars. You know, drive a Clio Cup car and it's fine. This sort of vehicle, I've not driven this class of car before. This is quite a twitchy car, which, you know, short wheelbase, mid-engine, all that, I can understand it being twitchy. It does make it considerably more difficult. And generally, the faster the car you get to, the more that sort of thing becomes a problem. Because the other thing is, everything feels just a little bit, I say, unresponsive. It seems like it's just a fraction slow. I'm only talking a fraction slow to respond to the input that I'm giving it. Now, when I first played this game, I was playing on an older controller I had. I was using a different one at the time, and I could not get on with the handling at all, and I thought it was horrific. I swapped back to my normal controller, and it is much better, so I know there's something in that, but even on the controller that I'm used to playing on this, there is still something a little bit, just a tiny bit unresponsive. It's not enough to be completely awful by any stretch of the imagination. It just takes some getting used to. I think it's compounded by, at times, the lack of information coming back to me. I said, play the game for a little while, and you do figure it out. You do get used to it and drive the different cars. Yeah, you can get the hang of it. It's just a little bit, I say it's a little bit strange for an arcadey racing game. Oh, I was expecting something. We're going to go there. I was expecting something perhaps a little different, and that has, yeah, the other thing is when you do start sliding, if it goes, it's gone. And it doesn't really, again, for me, it just doesn't really seem to, yeah, there's just no feel almost to it. I just don't get quite enough information. In the slower cars, it is all good, but once you start getting to the really quick cars, it's a little dicey. Nope, we're going to go round there, aren't we? No, caught it again. Damn it, I was doing so well with the Lancia. We're having a really good race, actually. We weren't quite going to win that one, but a good race was being had, and then we've almost binned it. The AIs are actually not too bad to race against, I have to say. Difficulty-wise, it's a little bit sporadic. Sometimes they seem unbelievably easy. So I'm playing this on the toughest difficulty for the AIs. It's on Legend, I think. I think that's what it's called anyway. And some races you will bugger off and not see anybody. I mean, that one there, before I spun, we were going fairly well. Up until that. Yeah, oh, we got a time penalty. Not that it made any difference because we jumped across the grass a little bit. Yeah, the difficulty, they'll put up a good fight. You can race quite closely with them, which is I'm always impressed by. I always like to see that you can run closely with some AI cars. Let's go and drive a different. We'll stick with circuit racing because this is the more fun stuff. Actually, you know what? While we're here, I'll come back to the AIs in a second. Let's talk about the car list because I can show this off quite nicely. Car list is pretty damn good, I have to say. You have a load of different classes, all sorts of different sort of race cars. You get some crazy time attack vehicles, MX-5 Cup cars, they're always good. Classic muscle cars, sort of Japanese tuner cars. You get a racing truck, stadium trucks back, full-on race trucks are here, sort of the NASCAR trucks. We've got some special track cars, Ford GT, Ferrari, various road cars. You feel like, oh, I didn't realise the Alpha was in here. I'm pleased about that. I like that. Hypercars. It's a great list. You've got the Mazda, the Furia thing that's not been around in a game for ages since Top Gear burnt it. That's not they did, but it actually caught fire while the Top Gear magazine was doing something. But it's cool to see. It's a great list of cars, all sorts of fascinating stuff. A random selection of classes, if you will. V8 supercars are here. Classic touring cars, the best category. Even the Volkswagen Fun Cup. They've also got, if we can go back over here, you've got drift cars. The drifting's a bit weird. Not the biggest fan of the drifting. It's a little bit odd. We've got electric cars. They've got their own Formula E style thing. Down here, there we go. Got the Lotus hypercar. It's a good car list. It's a really, really good car list for this kind of game, which is always exciting. There's plenty of stuff to play around with. You know, whatever sort of motorsport you're into, There you go, you want some old GT1 cars. Actually, haven't driven these yet. This can only go well. I'm going to have a drive of the Panos, because the Panos is cool. Track list as well is pretty good. There's fictional circuits around cities, sort of London, Barcelona, etc. But you've also got real-world circuits like Brands Hatch, Indianapolis. We've got Bathurst is here, Red Bull Ring, Sepang, which I haven't seen that in a game for a while. There's also Suzuka, which is cool. I always like Sydney Motorsport Park as well. Let's go here, sure. And all the various layouts. I'm not going to go through. Is that the layout? What layout do the V8 supercars run around? That one, I think, don't they? Yeah, I think so. Sure, let's go for that one. We've got weather effects. You know what? Let's race GT1 cars in the snow. This can only go well. Not that these make the biggest difference in the world to the way the vehicles drive. They don't make the. I mean, it'll slide a tiny bit more, but it's not by a huge amount that they'll slide around. But it's cool effects. So you've got good car lists. You've got a good track list. There's plenty of stuff to go racing around. It's actually a better car list than I was kind of expecting in many ways. Where are we going to start for this race? Oh, we start on the front right. This could only go really well for me. Oh, did I not select it? I thought I select snow. Whoops, we'll do a snow race in a minute. Probably for the best. But yes, the AIs. Difficulty level can be a bit odd. Some races, as I said, you'll run away at the front. Maybe we'll end up doing that here. Some races seem to struggle. In actual wheel-to-wheel racing, the AIs are pretty solid. Like, they'll put up a good fight, but they also won't completely ignore your presence. They'll give you space while trying to overtake, while trying to defend. So you can actually have some quite fun battles with all of them. Now, the grid games have always had the AIs sort of making mistakes, and that does continue in here, although they are a little bit over the top, I think, is the word we're going to use. I mean, we saw in that Brands Hatch race we had an AI car pointing backwards. Now, that does happen. Not all the time, but you play this game for a little while, you'll see that a few times. The AIs will spin out, they'll run wide, and so on, and so, which is cool. They do have a very over-the-top cinematic crash that involves them essentially. So they grab the handbrake, tip the car sideways, and then do a Hollywood sort of flip. It's quite silly and over the top. Sometimes it kind of looks depending on the point on the circuit, sometimes it looks like almost plausible. Sometimes they're just going down a straight, the main straight here, for example, quite a long straight. And the car just janks to the side and falls over, which, I mean, is a bit silly. It's kind of funny to watch, but a bit ridiculous. However, there can be more mundane things, like the AI's engines can blow up, a wheel can fall off, and that sort of stuff. They do happen with perhaps a little bit too much regularity, in that just about every race, something like that is going to happen. An AI car is going to go out. You can always, if you start at the back of the race, you can almost guarantee you're going to make up at least 3 places from some weird thing happening to the AI car. So you are going to see it occur. I think you can possibly turn it off. You can turn off mechanical damage to your own car, but I don't know whether that stops it on theirs. Regardless, yeah, you can normally pick up a couple of places by weird goings on of that nature. But I always like a little bit of variety, a little bit of excitement and so on in my races. That's all good. It's a slight shame then that sort of stuff doesn't really ever affect the player. Now, you can break your car, you can have terminal damage turned on as well, so if I hit the car into a wall really hard, it will DNF out of the race. You can damage your car in crashes, although you normally have to crash a lot, and I mean a lot, of bouncing off of stuff before you start really doing anything that slows down your vehicle. I mean, you'll see on the Speedo we've got some lights around it. I mean, I have not always been the most polite with the AI in some races where I've needed to win and I've been a long way back, or need to get to a certain place and been a long way back. And I can go through a lot of crashes before even those lights come on. To get terminal damage, you'd have to pretty much go head on into a wall very, very hard. And on the most part, that sort of thing just doesn't really happen very often. So it's just not something that's ever going to, I say, really occur in my time of playing this game. I've not actually had a terminal crash, despite bouncing off a lot of cars along the way. So it's going to take a really big hit to get to that point, and in many ways, to me, it's a little bit of a shame, because sometimes it feels like the AIs can have a more exciting time than the player can, in that they'll deal with things going wrong, and you don't quite get that as the player. Now, And I appreciate, of course, not everybody wants to have their vehicle have the possibility of random mechanical things going wrong. I get that, of course. The point of this game, though, is about running a racing team. As we come out of this, I will elaborate on this. I mean, the point of, for those of you that remember the very first Grid game back, I mean, you can go all the way back to the TOCA Race Driver games, but let's go back to the original Grid game, seeing as this shares the name, where you built a racing team up, and that is kind of what I was hoping this was going to go more along the lines of, and it kind of does, but I so wish it went a little bit further, because it's so close to being really good, but it just doesn't quite make the most of the opportunity. We ran a little bit wide. I got a second penalty, doesn't matter. that was from some liberal interpretations of track limits, shall we say. So yeah, the racing is fun. So we have a garage here. These are all the cars. When you start off the game, you actually get given quite a lot of cars to start with. Yes. Oh, okay. This is the touring category. And oh no, wrong button. Then we've got the tuner category. We start off with an R8 apparently, which is cool. GTs. See what I mean about some cool, really cool cars in all of this. I don't have a drift car. We do have a Yesco, though, of course. Of course we do, and a Formula thing, and some trucks, and so on and so forth. So yeah, this is the garage. You can buy cars. You'll unlock cars as you go through. Okay, fair enough. Most games do this system. There is a team system as well, which is cool, but so much more could be done with it. You get a sponsor. I get some objectives over here. I don't actually quite know what the hell what I get for completing them. I presume some money that can be used to be spent on some cars, but that's it. You know, you don't really see the sponsors don't really go on your car. You can make custom liveries, but you've got to make liveries for every single car. Very time consuming. Most of the time I can't be bothered. You know, it's not like you're having a livery that runs on all of your cars, or like even a team colour specifically to run all your cars. This is just the default liveries. We can go into liveries. So, for example, let's go this one here, for example. But I mean, even here, so you can customize it to this degree, but you can't put particular stickers on the vehicle. You can turn sponsors on and off, but the sponsor I have for my team isn't even on my car. It just feels like a little bit pointless. Why bother with this if you're not going to be able to kind of make the most of the team aspect? And this was the thing the first Grid did really well, is it had, you know, you kind of built up a team and it felt more like your team. Whereas this is just, here's some cars, here's some stuff, go for it, and it's all very well and good. There's a teammate development. You have a teammate that turns up in your single player races and so on. But all you're doing is putting some numbers here. You know, you can't change your teammate for somebody else. You can't gradually get better teammates, pay more money to get better drivers and so on. You upgrade them as you go, but it's all just some numbers on a screen here that I don't really care about, because it's not really all that interesting. It doesn't really go far enough. And the same, you've got a mechanic. Okay, great. They can do some things with the vehicle. They can give you extra sponsors and that's for the electric cars. They get like a speed boost, like you get whatever's in Formula E. I've forgotten the name of it. That's what that's for. You get slightly cheaper upgrades for the cars, but it's all locked away in here. I absolutely wish this had gone an awful lot further. You know, maybe you know, you have parts wear out in your car, and the better mechanic keeps the car in better condition in between races. And if you know, at the start of the game, your car's going to be quite unreliable. Your mechanic can't fix everything up all the time, so you're going to have engine failures, tyre failures, all of that sort of thing. You know, maybe you'll hire better mechanics as your team gets more successful. That is the sort of thing that I would love to see from this. Okay, the original Grid didn't quite go that far, and I appreciate that starts getting into quite detail, but this is kind of a bit nothing, really. The team aspect of it, you can probably play through the game quite happily and never have to change a damn thing about any of this. It's kind of quite irrelevant, which is a shame because it could be such a good thing. I mean, the career is structured quite a lot along the lines of the original Grid. You've got all these different categories you go through, then the rookie, you got semi-pro, so on and so forth. I've been sort of working my way through randomly different stuff. Actually, you know what, let's have a go, because this one here I think is in the snow. Let's go load this up, because I'm going to show a snow race. The actual structure is fun, and there's quite a lot of races to get through. They can get a little bit repetitive, and some of it requires you to... So you have upgrades for the cars, and some of it requires distance travelled. So I think you have to replay a few races just to get a car to level 2 so that you can then go and access the next championship for it. I think there's a bit that could get a slight repetitive in places. But there is certainly okay, you know, racing at the end of the day, racing you around in circles, essentially. But yeah, there's a lot of content there. It's so close to being, I say, really good. And I've had a fun time. This is the thing. This is why I struggle with this video. I've had a fun time with this game. I've enjoyed my time playing this game, actually. More than I thought I would, and certainly more than... It took me a little bit to get into it, but once I got into it, I have actually enjoyed driving on here. But it also feels like quite a big missed opportunity, in that it's really close to being a very, very good game. But it's just not quite there. There's just little things, whether it be the handling being a little bit odd. I've never come across a game with quite a strange brake feel as this one. And I know that's a strange thing to say, and I'm not sure how I can better describe it to you, but it is a weird thing, a weird way of almost driving a car, with so little feedback when you're driving. You know, I don't know what it's like on a wheel. I haven't played it on a wheel, but on a controller, it's just got not enough information quite. It feels like. If it could just be a little bit more in depth in areas, it could be amazing. And the problem I find myself with this one is it looks great. Do not get me wrong, the car list is fantastic, the track list is good, but I still think the original Grid is the better game as far as the progression goes. Yes, I will say the story mode is fun. It's nice to see in a racing game. It is well done, and Codemasters have, you know, been making big strides in terms of this as an idea, and I'd love to see it expanded upon more and more going forward, because, as I said, there are some great stories. Motorsport can tell some great stories. I know a racing game is not exactly where you expect narrative from, but there is definitely potential for interesting stories being told. However, because of the unpredictability, there does perhaps need to be a little. There needs to be a little bit more. I guess, like, well, that's a branching story, but you know what I mean. I hope in terms of that, there needs to be a few more sort of possible ways rather than just complete objective or not, because weird things happen. However, yeah, it's all sort of progress in the right kind of direction. This is actually quite a tough circuit to go quickly around. I mean, conclusion-wise for this one, as I say, it is really tough. And the other big problem that Grid has is its release time. Like, it comes out just before perhaps one of the most significant racing games in a very long time, Gran Turismo 7. I don't quite know what day this video is coming out, but not long until Gran Turismo 7 comes out. In fact, hell, this video will probably be overshadowed by Gran Turismo 7 stuff. This was not really the target window you wanted to release the game into. I know Horizon 5 has not been out for long, but in many ways, and this is coming from an Xbox and Forza person, Gran Turismo 7 is probably the biggest racing game in a very long time. And you're putting this out a couple of weeks before that. I mean, that's brave. That's... That's brave, and it's unfortunate because it is going to probably be overshadowed and forgotten about because of that in many ways. As I said, it is still a fun game. It is a good, entertaining racing game. You're going to be a twat here, aren't you? In its own right. I just feel like if it's going to compete with a very busy market, if you will, it's got to have something a little bit special in it. And if it had those more detailed, potentially, you know, sort of career mode, more interactivity with like sponsors and running of the cars and all of that kind of thing that it sort of half-heartedly tries, it could have been that, but it doesn't. It doesn't go far enough for that to really set it out apart from even previous Grid games, and I think that's a slight problem. So I've said all that, and I know it sounds quite harsh, but it's also a game I've had fun with, and that's why it's difficult doing this in many ways. I don't think you would be disappointed playing with it. You know, if you're a fan of racing games, handling might not be for everybody. You know, I always say this when it comes to arcade games, not everybody likes slightly arcadey racing games, and that's fair enough. It is an arcadey racing game. If we, you know, accept that fact, handling might not quite be for everybody because it is a little bit weird, although you will get the hang of it over time. It's just, yeah, it's a very difficult one. It's a very difficult one because I both want to kind of recommended and not all at the same time. You will have fun with it, I have no doubt, and the car list is, you'll find cars that interest you. It's great to see the Super Touring cars in there, GT1 cars in there. It's classic vehicles, classic race cars are in here as well, along with, well, things like this Corvette. There's crazy time attack cars and trucks. I love trucks. Any game with racing trucks is good in my book. So, yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on this one. That's, oh dear, that almost splattered the back of a Hellcat. Yeah, that is my thoughts on this one. It's close to being very good, just not quite there, but you will have fun with it. Just unfortunate that it's going up against, well, let's say, it's not a direct competitor, but, you know, it is going to get overshadowed any way you look at it. We're going to end up in a wall. No, you're going to give me space. There we go. See, the AI, they can be sensible. They are not too bad to race wheel to wheel with when they want to behave themselves. Unfortunately, we are not going to be winning this event because I cannot quite get the first sector as fast as the AI can. I mean, we're very, very close. We're very close. Unless I do an absolutely blinding final sector here, we are not going to be winning this one. But yeah, I feel like this Corvette is probably better in the snow than it should be. Or if you go offline, you should have a very big accident, and we're getting away with stuff here. It looks pretty, though, no doubt about it. Oh, wait, we've got one more lap. Oh, I thought this was only a 3-lap run. Never mind, I take it back. Ignore me. Oh, found our teammate. Did we pass our teammate at the very start? Well, I was going to wrap everything up there, but I guess we've got another lap to go. Well, we will be brave. Yeah, it's got to be our teammate, surely. Unless they've, like, dropped back. We've got to be absolutely bonkers on this final lap, try and go quicker, and we have got traffic, unfortunately. We go for a dive bomb. No, it wasn't a good idea. I needed to get past, because I don't want to get held up elsewhere. However, that was a bit too big a dive bomb. I mean, I guess we can sit in the slipstream a little bit. But you see what I mean? Like, I haven't damaged my car at all, pinging off the wall at quite high speed, like, mechanically speaking. Visually, there's a little bit of damage, but visual damage is quite decent. You'll bend up the bumpers and all of that sort of thing, but mechanically speaking, it's... these things are bloody strong. Oh, I'm going to lose a whole heap of time trying to fight with this car now. Come on. I should have maybe... Well, if I'd realised I was going to have another lap, I would have dropped back massively when I realised that last lap was going wrong. I just thought that was it. I was not paying attention to anything, but yeah, we're not going to be able to do anything about the car out in front. We are going to... I mean, I can try, but I'm not going to make up like the second and a half we were down, I don't think. Unless we are amazingly quick. Change the direction down through there. Lovely stuff. Try not to clout the wall. Very close. Where's the next split? There it is. We're still quite a long way off. 1.3 seconds in the final sector. I mean, we've made some time. But the Mustang, the AI are not going to be good on the brakes here. Nope. Oh, Christ. Oh, the other thing I was going to say, just last finishing note, collisions between vehicles are not great. The physics is a bit, well, it kind of feels, doesn't really feel any weight to them. It kind of feels a bit like two Hot Wheels cars bouncing off one another. It's the only way I can think to describe it. It's not the most impressive sort of clonk between them, and it does feel like sometimes you can get cars a little bit sort of stuck together in some of the crashes. Yeah, when they crash on their own, it's kind of spectacular, but when you bump with other vehicles, a lot of the time, it doesn't feel very impactful. I'm going to go with that as a word. I don't know if it is, but I'm going to go with it. So, no, we can only manage second on that one. If I can get that first sector right, we'd be sorted. Oh, we completed some events in snowy conditions. Awesome. Well, we didn't quite complete the objective, but yeah, there we go. So that has been a look at Grid. It's a game that you'll have fun with, despite its flaws, and a game, sadly, that might get a little bit forgotten about. If there is, I hope the Grid series does continue. If there is a future Grid, I would love to see a much more detailed team aspect. I feel like this is such a good, there's so much potential, but it's just not really used. But yeah, what is here, the events that are here are good fun. The races are good fun, and the story is interesting. Interesting enough certainly to keep your attention. So there we go. That is going to be it for this video. Thank you all very much for watching, and until next time, a goodbye.